They accused me of being a criminal using fabricated evidence. I played the hidden recording device during the trial. My father-in-law collapsed when the judge turned to face him. My daughter looked up at me with innocent eyes and said, "Mama says we'll be better off when you're gone." That's when I realized they had been conspiring against me all along. Our family embodied the quintessential suburban success story. Weekend barbecues, children's lemonade stands on sun-drenched afternoons, coordinated holiday outfits. We had it all. My wife had only dated 2 men before me, and she'd always been my first choice. The only exception to our picture-perfect life was my mother-in-law. She treated me with contempt because I was from Nigeria, while my wife Elena was born and raised in Canada. She'd call me things like jungle boy or tribesman, with a cackling laugh that made my skin crawl. She'd snicker with her friends as if she'd said something profoundly witty. Initially, Elena attempted to intervene, but I eventually advised her to stop trying. It only seemed to encourage her mother's behavior. Besides, I was marrying Elena, not her family, so everything would work out fine, right? That's precisely why Elena and I thought hosting a Sunday dinner for her family would be a good idea. It seemed harmless enough. After all, our daughter Lily needed to know her maternal relatives better. Everything started wonderfully. Her father embraced me warmly. Her brother presented us with an expensive bottle of wine. Then her mother arrived. "Don't worry, I brought some plain chicken for Lily in case your food is too exotic," she said, her voice sharp enough to slice through steel. I ignored the barb and flashed my well-practiced smile. "Thank you, Margaret," I replied, giving her a warm hug. I felt her body stiffen, and I had to suppress the urge to laugh directly into her ear. After that awkward beginning, things seemed to improve. Everyone was enjoying themselves. Our plates gleamed under the dining room chandelier. We all ate until we were satisfied. But halfway through the evening, I noticed Margaret had disappeared with Elena for over an hour. I assumed she was delivering another one of her "you need to leave him" speeches, so I disregarded it. By the end of the night, Lily was exhausted from all the attention. I knew the dinner had been successful despite everything. I wasn't expecting gratitude from Margaret, or anything positive for that matter. Yet, as she was leaving, she outdid herself. "It's never too late to start fresh," she said with a cynical tone barely concealing her true meaning. I remember exhaling deeply, relieved that this ordeal was finally over. Later, while cleaning up, I casually asked Elena what her mother had meant. "Oh, the usual," she replied. I chuckled, understanding it was code for the typical nonsense. But instead of laughing with me, Elena froze, her hands motionless above the sink. For the first time, I caught a glimpse of something unsettling in my wife's eyes. She looked at me like a principal about to discipline a troublesome student. A sick feeling gnawed at my stomach, but I convinced myself that Elena was simply tired, and that's how it manifested. But then came the next day. Elena completely ignored me, giving me the cold shoulder, her demeanor icier than a Canadian winter. However, that wasn't the worst part. That evening, we were watching television when news of a terrorist attack broke. Elena turned to me and remarked, "You'd know all about that, wouldn't you?" before laughing as if she'd just delivered the punchline to the funniest joke ever told. Until that moment, she had been the first person in my life who hadn't weaponized my foreign background against me. A significant reason I felt secure in our relationship. So when those words left her mouth, my heart shattered into countless pieces. I retreated to the bathroom and let the tears flow silently, unwilling to accept what was happening. Her words cut deeper than any blade ever could. I knew her mother was behind this transformation, but when I mentioned it, Elena simply shrugged and said, "I guess my sense of humor is evolving quickly." I took a deep breath. She'd never behaved this way before. What I felt wasn't hurt anymore. It was disgust. I didn't see much of Elena that week, not intentionally, but because she had suddenly become extraordinarily busy at work. I spent considerable time with Lily during those days. Then one afternoon, while picking her up from school, Lily asked if we could stop for ice cream on our way home. I declined, explaining I had prepared a healthy snack waiting in the refrigerator. She looked at me as though I'd delivered devastating news, then blurted out, "Mama says we'll be better off when you're gone." My heart plummeted. I fell silent, my voice trapped in my throat, fighting back tears. My mind raced uncontrollably. Considering Elena's recent behavior, things began making terrible sense. When we arrived home, Elena hadn't returned from work yet. so I decided to investigate. As I climbed the ladder to our attic, dust particles danced in the air, making me cough. A foreboding of the mountain of pain that awaited me. Once inside, I spotted an unfamiliar box. The top documents were mundane tax forms. But what I discovered beneath them was so shocking that I nearly lost my balance. Dozens of screenshots of text messages, transcribed voice memos, and photographs of us together, all presented entirely out of context to portray me as a monstrous villain. At the bottom of each page, I noticed Margaret's signature as a witness. For instance, there was a screenshot of a text I'd sent Elena when she was out with friends that read, "Remember who you belong to." It was an inside joke from a movie we both loved. But the accompanying note stated, "Exhibits controlling behavior. Restricts my freedom." A photograph of me looking angry. I had been yelling at the television during a hockey game. Bore the caption, "Frequently displays rage. I fear for my safety." Each document was signed at the bottom with witness, Margaret Campbell. As I dug deeper, I discovered a draft divorce petition. The allegations were horrifying: emotional abuse, controlling behavior, and claims that I had threatened Elena. According to these documents, I was a rage-fueled time bomb who had isolated Elena from her family and friends. It was all lies, terrible, calculated lies designed to destroy me. And at the very bottom of the box, I found the most disturbing item of all, a handwritten plan detailing how Elena would take Lily, drain our joint accounts, and leave me with nothing, not even visitation rights to my daughter. I sat in the dusty attic, clutching these papers, feeling as if my entire world had imploded. The wife I loved, the mother of my child, had been methodically building a case against me. And for what? So she could take everything and leave me with nothing? I heard the garage door open downstairs. Elena was home. I quickly returned everything exactly as I had found it and descended the ladder, my mind racing. What was I going to do now? I quietly closed the attic access as Elena walked through the door. My hands trembled so violently that I nearly lost my grip on the ladder. In half an hour, I had gone from being a confused husband to feeling like a man awaiting execution. "Hey," Elena said without looking at me, placing her keys on the counter as she always did. But nothing felt normal anymore. Not her voice, not her movements, nothing. I tried to act casual. "Hey, how was work?" My voice sounded strange even to my own ears, as if I were reading from a script. "Fine." She brushed past me, and I noticed an unfamiliar perfume again. She went straight to Lily and knelt down to embrace her tightly. "Hey, sweetie, I missed you." Watching them made my stomach knot painfully. Was she planning to take our daughter away from me? According to those documents, that's exactly what she intended to do. I needed to think. I needed a plan. I mumbled something about checking the mail and stepped outside to breathe. The evening air felt cool against my face, which was probably flushed from stress and anger. James, our neighbor, waved from across the street while walking his dog. I waved back mechanically, wondering if our entire life was about to become neighborhood gossip. That night, I could barely sleep. Elena stayed as far away from me in bed as possible without falling off. I stared at the ceiling for hours, my thoughts swirling. What had Margaret said to turn Elena against me so completely? What was I going to do? The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't concentrate anyway. When Elena left with Lily for school drop-off, I returned to the attic. I photographed everything with my phone, documenting all the lies and manipulations. If things were headed where I suspected, I'd need evidence. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, researching divorce attorneys on my laptop. I found one with excellent reviews, Sarah Rodriguez, who specializes in father's rights. I scheduled an appointment for the following day during my lunch break. Elena seemed surprised to find me at home that evening. "I thought you were working late today," she said, sounding slightly irritated. I hadn't told her anything of the sort. "No. Why would you think that?" She shrugged. Must have gotten confused. More lies. She had undoubtedly planned something for when I was supposed to be gone. That night, I paid careful attention to her, noticing how she constantly checked her phone and typed messages when she thought I wasn't looking. The next day, I met with Sarah. Her office was modest but professional, with credentials adorning one wall and family photos on her desk. I showed her the photos I'd taken of Elena's documents and explained what had transpired. Sarah listened attentively, taking notes and occasionally asking questions. After I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "This is quite the situation, Adebayo. Based on what you've shown me, your wife and mother-in-law are preparing a divorce petition in which you would lose custody and most of your assets. She adjusted her glasses. The good news is that you discovered this before they served you papers. We have time to prepare. What should I do? I asked, feeling completely lost. First, don't confront your wife. Act normally. Second, protect your finances. Open a separate account at a different bank and transfer half of your savings there. It's still marital property, but this prevents you from being left with nothing. Third, document everything. Record conversations if your province permits it. Keep a journal of all interactions. I left her office with a plan and feeling slightly less afraid. On my way back to work, I stopped at a new bank and opened an account, transferring half of our savings as Sarah recommended. I felt terrible about it, but then I remembered the detailed plan to completely clean me out. This wasn't deception. This was self-preservation. That weekend was excruciating. Elena suggested we take Lily to the park as a family, which seemed like the most twisted idea given what I now knew. Still, I participated, pushing Lily on the swings while Elena took photos with her phone. Was she capturing our final moments as a family or gathering more evidence to use against me? I couldn't tell anymore. Elena received a call while Lily was playing in the sandbox. She stepped away to answer, but I noticed her face brighten in a way it hadn't in weeks. When she returned, I casually asked who had called. "Just Mom checking in," she said, but her gaze avoided mine. That night, after Lily went to bed, I began keeping the journal Sarah had recommended. I wrote down everything that had happened since the dinner, trying to be as detailed as possible. It felt strange documenting the collapse of my marriage, but I needed to protect myself and, more importantly, my relationship with my daughter. Monday morning, I called Elena's father. We had always gotten along well, and I needed to know if he was involved in this scheme. I asked if he could meet me for lunch, just the two of us. He sounded surprised but agreed. We met at a small cafe near his office. Robert looked older than I remembered, the lines around his eyes deeper. We ordered sandwiches and made small talk until they arrived. Finally, I took a deep breath before diving in. "Robert, I need to ask you something important. Has Elena mentioned any marital problems to you?" He put down his sandwich, clearly confused. "Not at all. Is everything okay between you two?" I studied his face. Either he was an excellent actor, or he genuinely had no idea what was happening. I decided to take a chance. I found some documents in our attic, plans for a divorce where Elena takes everything, including Lily, based on lies about me being abusive. And your wife has signed as a witness to all of it. Robert's face paled. "What? That's absurd. Margaret hasn't mentioned anything like this to me." I showed him some images from my phone. As he swiped through them, his expression transformed from shock to something resembling rage. "My God, this is Margaret's handwriting." He handed back my phone. "Adebayo, I had no idea, I swear. This isn't right. I don't know what to do," I admitted. "I love Elena, but she's completely changed. And the thought of losing Lily." My voice unexpectedly cracked. Robert reached across the table and placed his hand on my arm. "I'll talk to Margaret and Elena. This has gone too far." I shook my head. "Please don't. Not yet. If they discover I found these records, who knows what they'll do next? I need to protect myself first." He nodded slowly. "I understand, but I want you to know that I'm not part of this, and I don't support it. You've been an exceptional husband and father. Whatever Margaret has planted in Elena's head is wrong." Having Robert as an ally lifted a tremendous weight from my shoulders. Before we parted, he promised to keep an eye out for any further scheming without revealing what he knew. Over the next week, I continued playing the role of the oblivious husband. Elena was making more work calls in private and having hushed phone conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the room. I maintained my journal and checked in with Sarah regularly. Then came another shock. Elena's brother, David, texted me unexpectedly. "Hey man, can we grab a beer tonight? Need to talk about something." We met at a sports bar several towns away where we wouldn't encounter anyone we knew. David appeared nervous, fidgeting with his drink coaster. "So what's up?" I asked, trying to sound casual. David took a long swig of his beer. "Mom called me last night. She asked me to submit a statement saying I witnessed you verbally abusing Elena at family gatherings." My heart sank. I told her she was crazy. "I've never seen you be anything but respectful to Elena. I don't know what's going on, but Mom was insistent. Elena is planning to leave you and wants documentation for the divorce." I told David what I had discovered. He was as shocked as his father had been. This is messed up, Adebayo. Mom has always been difficult, but this is next level. What can I do to help? We spent the next hour strategizing. David agreed to pretend to comply with Margaret's request while actually documenting all her attempts to fabricate evidence against me. He'd also listen for any discussions about their timeline. On the drive home, I experienced a strange mixture of emotions. My wife had betrayed me, yet I was touched by the support from her father and brother. I was no longer alone in this fight. When I arrived home, Elena was waiting with folded arms. "Where were you?" "Just having a beer with some colleagues from work." I lied, hating how easily it came now. "Mike is getting divorced." I needed to vent. Something flashed in her eyes. "Divorce, huh? Poor guy." "Yeah." I went to the bathroom to avoid further conversation. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The stress was taking its toll. I looked exhausted and older. This couldn't continue much longer. The next day, I set up a small camera in our living room. Sarah had advised it, and while it felt invasive, I needed to protect myself. I made sure it was legal in our province and configured it to only capture common areas of the house. That decision paid off sooner than I anticipated. 2 days later, reviewing the footage, I observed Elena and her mother in our living room while I was at work. "I don't know, Mom," Elena said, her expression troubled. "This feels wrong. He's never hurt me." Margaret's voice was harsh. "Don't be naive, Elena. Men like him always reveal their true colors eventually. Remember what happened to Cousin Jen? Better to get out now while you have the upper hand. Think about the settlement. You'll never have to work again. What about Lily? Children are resilient. Besides, she'll be better off without that foreign influence." I watched in dismay as Margaret removed documents from her bag that matched what I'd found in the attic. They spent the next hour elaborating on the fabricated evidence, with Margaret coaching Elena on what to write. "Just think about the beach house we could buy with his pension," Margaret added, smiling. "And that Nigerian art gallery of his brother's will be worth something too if we play this right." I felt nauseated. This wasn't just about removing me from the picture. It was about money. Margaret was using her own daughter in an attempt to defraud me and my family. I saved the video in multiple locations and sent a copy to Sarah. She called me immediately after watching it. "This is exactly what we needed, Adebayo. This proves the allegations are fabricated and shows coercion, but we still need to be strategic about how we use it." I agreed, but part of me wanted to confront Elena right away. How could she do this? Was our entire marriage a sham? That night at dinner, Lily asked if we could visit Nigeria to see my family next summer, and I nearly broke down. "Grandma says I can't go there anymore because it's dangerous," she explained innocently. Elena quickly changed the subject, but the damage was done. They were already poisoning my daughter against her heritage, against part of who she was. I excused myself from the table before I lost my composure completely. The following day, David called with additional information. "They're planning to file next Monday. Mom's meeting with some hotshot divorce attorney tomorrow to finalize everything." This accelerated our timeline dramatically. Sarah instructed me to file first with the evidence we had gathered. "If we wait for them to serve you, you'll be on the defensive from day one," she told me. We completed all the paperwork that weekend. I felt like I was living a double life, playing board games with Lily and making Sunday pancakes while also preparing for a divorce battle. Elena maintained her act, too. But there were moments when she seemed almost like her old self, especially around Lily. It made me wonder how much of this was her idea and how much was her mother's manipulation. Monday morning, I left for work as usual, but headed straight to the courthouse. Filing those papers was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Each signature felt like another nail in the coffin of our marriage. My phone buzzed as I was leaving the courthouse. A message from David. "Mom just picked up Elena from work. They're heading to their lawyer now. You beat them by hours." Elena received the divorce papers at her office that afternoon. I made sure Lily was with me, driving her straight from school to my friend Tom's house, where we'd arranged for her to have a play date with his son. I didn't want her home for the inevitable confrontation. The storm hit around 6 p.m. Elena burst through the front door, her face contorted with fury. "What the hell is this?" she shouted, waving the papers. "Divorce papers," I said calmly. "I thought I'd save you the trouble of filing yourself." Her expression shifted from angry to confused. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb, Elena. I know everything. The fake abuse claims, the plan to take everything, including Lily, Your mother coaching you on how to set me up. She paled slightly, but recovered quickly. You're paranoid. This is exactly why I need to get away from you. Really? So you weren't planning to file for divorce today? Your mom didn't meet with a lawyer last week. That silenced her. And I suppose you weren't building a case against me with fabricated evidence that your mother witnessed? Evidence that's conveniently stored in our attic. Elena sank onto the couch, her confidence evaporating. You found the box. I did. And I have video of you and your mother creating false evidence. What were you thinking, Elena? Was our entire marriage a lie? She looked up with tears in her eyes. No. I loved you. I still do, in a way. But Mom said. Mom said what? That I'd eventually become abusive because I'm Nigerian? That you could take me for everything I have? That my family business worth targeting? The anger I'd been suppressing for weeks finally surfaced. Elena's tears were flowing freely now. She kept saying you were going to hurt me eventually. That men like you always do. She had all these statistics about domestic violence in African cultures. And then she started talking about how much money I could get. And you believed her after 7 years together? I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. She shook her head. Not at first, but she was so persistent. Every day, more articles, more horror stories. She even had this friend whose daughter married someone from Ghana. And he supposedly became this monster after they had kids. So, because some random person's daughter had a bad marriage, ours was doomed? That's racist, Elena. Plain and simple. She flinched at the word. I know it is. I started to realize that a few days ago, but by then things had gone so far. Mom had already paid the lawyer. I sat across from her to maintain my distance. Where's Lily? With Tom. I didn't want her here for this. Elena nodded, relieved. Then her phone rang. Margaret was calling. Elena looked at it for a moment before declining the call. What happens now? She asked quietly. That depends. The papers I filed request joint custody and an equitable division of assets. No false abuse claims. No attempt to destroy each other. But I can't just pretend this didn't happen, Elena. You've betrayed me in the worst possible way. Margaret's text messages began buzzing through on Elena's phone. Elena eventually turned it off completely. I don't know if I want a divorce, she said softly. These past few weeks, I felt like I'm losing my mind. Mom was always there, pushing and pushing. But when I'm alone, I miss you. The real you, not the monster she painted. I hadn't expected that. I wanted to comfort her. But our trust had been shattered. I don't know if our marriage can recover from this, I told her. But I do know that your mother can never have this kind of influence in our lives again. Elena looked up sharply. You want me to cut off my mother? I want you to recognize how toxic she is. She nearly destroyed our family for money and her own prejudice. We talked for several hours that night. A painful, honest conversation about how we'd reached this point. Elena admitted to feeling disconnected from her identity while living in our neighborhood with my large extended family nearby. Margaret had exploited that vulnerability. But that doesn't excuse what I did, Elena said. I should have talked to you instead of plotting behind your back. It was nearly midnight when I picked up Lily from Tom's. Elena and I had agreed on a tentative ceasefire. We'd attend counseling, both marriage and individual therapy, to help Elena work through her relationship with her mother. In the meantime, Margaret was not welcome in our home. The following days were uncomfortable, yet strangely hopeful. Elena moved into the guest room to give us space while we sorted things out. She called in sick to work and spent the day removing all the evidence from the attic, breaking down in tears several times as she realized the gravity of what she had almost done. Margaret, meanwhile, was on the warpath. She called repeatedly, showed up at our door uninvited, and even tried to contact Lily's school. We didn't respond, and I documented everything just in case. Then came the confrontation we couldn't avoid. Robert and David arranged a family meeting at their home, but Margaret wasn't invited. When we arrived, I was surprised to find Elena's sister, Grace, who had flown in from Vancouver. We gathered around Robert's dining table with tension thick enough to cut. I explained everything and showed them the video footage. Grace appeared shocked. Mom tried to involve me too, she admitted. Called last month asking if I'd ever seen Adebayo lose his temper. I told her she was being ridiculous. Robert cleared his throat. I've spoken with Margaret. She admits to encouraging the divorce, but claims she was just protecting Elena. I don't believe her, he said, looking directly at me. I'm sorry, Adebayo. This should never have happened. Elena was crying silently beside me. Not the false tears I'd witnessed recently, but genuine remorse. Despite the tears, she spoke clearly. I made a terrible mistake. I let Mom's prejudice and greed cloud my judgment, and I nearly destroyed my family. She was looking at me. I don't expect forgiveness, but I am truly sorry. David leaned forward. The question is, what now? Mom's not going to just back off. She has to, Robert stated firmly. I've made that clear to her. This ends now, or there will be consequences. Grace nodded. We're with you, Adebayo. Whatever you decide about your marriage, you'll always be Lily's father and part of this family. Elena's family's support was overwhelming. After years of feeling like an outsider, I was finally accepted, ironically, just as my marriage was crumbling. We left with much to consider. On the drive home, Elena asked, "Do you think we can ever get past this?" I gripped the steering wheel tightly. I honestly don't know, but for Lily's sake, I'm willing to try. The road to rebuilding trust would be long. In the weeks that followed, I'd notice Elena glancing at her phone and wonder if she was communicating with Margaret. Some nights I'd wake up in a cold sweat, wondering if this was all another setup. Yet there were positive moments too. Elena found a therapist who specialized in toxic family relationships. She began engaging more with my family and made an effort to learn Nigerian cooking from my mother. Most importantly, she resisted Margaret's repeated attempts to interfere. The turning point came a month after the confrontation. Margaret showed up at our house uninvited, pushing her way in when Elena answered the door. "This has gone on long enough," she declared. "I've spoken with another attorney. We can still file with the evidence we gathered." I was upstairs, but I could hear every word through the camera I'd installed in the living room. I waited, heart racing, for Elena's response. "There is no we, Mom," Elena said firmly. "What we did was wrong. Adebayo is a good man and a wonderful father. Your prejudice nearly cost me my family." "Don't be so dramatic," Margaret scoffed. "Men like him always." Elena's voice was the strongest I'd heard in months. "If you can't respect my husband and the father of my child, then you need to leave. And don't come back until you can treat him with dignity." From my hiding place at the top of the stairs, I heard the front door open. "This isn't over," Margaret growled. "Yes, it is," Elena said, closing the door firmly. I waited a few minutes before heading downstairs. Elena sat on the couch, looking exhausted but somehow lighter. "You heard?" she asked. I nodded, sitting beside her. "Thank you." She took my hand cautiously. "I meant every word. I've been so blind, Adebayo. I can't believe I almost threw everything that matters away. For what? Money? My mother's approval?" That night, we discussed possibly dismissing the divorce papers. It wouldn't be easy, and we had a lot of work ahead. But for the first time since discovering those documents in the attic, I felt hopeful that our family might heal. That night was the first time in weeks I truly believed we could overcome this. I didn't know if our marriage would ever be the same, but witnessing Elena stand up to her mother like that was significant. Perhaps there was something worth salvaging here. The next morning, Elena suggested we take Lily to the park. It felt awkward at first, as if we were pretending to be a normal family for our daughter's benefit. But watching Lily race around the playground, laughing and carefree, reminded me why we were working so hard to fix things. "She looks happy," Elena observed, sitting beside me on the bench. "Yeah," I agreed. "Kids are resilient." "Do you think she knows something's wrong between us?" I shrugged. "Children sense more than we realize, but I'm trying my best to keep things normal for her." Elena nodded, watching Lily climb the monkey bars. "Me too. That's why I need to tell you something." My stomach immediately tightened. "What is it?" "Mom's planning something. David called me last night after you went to bed. She's been meeting with another lawyer, someone really aggressive who specializes in high-conflict divorces." I sighed deeply. Of course, Margaret wouldn't give up so easily. What does that mean for us? I don't know exactly, but David thinks she's going to try to force my hand somehow. Maybe threaten to cut me off financially or something. Elena paused. "I know that shouldn't matter, but your parents have always helped us out." I finished for her. Elena's family was quite affluent, and they had provided our down payment and assisted with Lily's private school tuition. "I'm not saying I'd choose money over our family," Elena clarified quickly. "I just wanted you to know what we might be facing." I appreciated the honesty, at least. "Thanks for telling me." Lily came running up and demanded we watch her go down the big slide, so we didn't have much time to discuss it further. For the rest of the afternoon, we set aside our worries and focused on being parents. That evening, after Lily went to bed, I called Sarah to update her on the situation. She wasn't surprised that Margaret had hired a new lawyer. People like her don't back down easily, she told me. But her position is weak now. You have evidence of the fabricated abuse claims, and Elena isn't cooperating with her anymore. So what should we do? I asked. Stay the course. Keep documenting everything. If you and Elena are truly trying to reconcile, we can file to dismiss the divorce petition, but I'd wait a bit longer to make sure things are stable. I agreed with her advice. Trust wouldn't be rebuilt overnight. The following week was relatively peaceful. Elena and I began couples therapy with a counselor named Dr. Chun, who had no connection to Elena's sister. Our first session was difficult, lots of tears and painful truths. I admitted to feeling betrayed, and Elena discussed how her mother had exploited my insecurities about our cultural differences. I was always a little intimidated by your family, she said during our second session. Everyone speaking Yoruba at gatherings, all the traditions I didn't understand. I sometimes felt like an outsider. You never told me that, I said, genuinely surprised. I didn't want to seem ignorant or racist, but Mom used that. She kept telling me I was losing my identity, that Lily was becoming more Nigerian than Canadian. Dr. Chun helped us see how we both contributed to the problem, me for failing to notice Elena's discomfort, and Elena for failing to communicate her feelings. It wasn't an excuse for what Margaret had done, but it helped me understand how she had found a vulnerability to exploit. Things at home gradually improved. Elena returned to our bedroom. We weren't intimate yet, but we were gentle with each other, as if handling something precious that could break if we moved too quickly. Then Margaret made her move. I returned home from work on Thursday to find Elena sitting at the kitchen table, pale. Her hand trembled slightly as she clutched a thick envelope. What's wrong? I asked, setting down my laptop bag. Mom sent this. She pushed the envelope toward me. It's a trust fund document. Apparently, they set up a college fund for Lily when she was born. Almost $250,000 now. I skimmed the paperwork. Okay. And there's a condition. The money can only be accessed if Lily is living primarily with me or my parents. If we stay married or if we share custody, the money goes to charity instead. I could feel the familiar anger rising. She's using Lily's education as leverage. Elena nodded miserably. There's a letter, too. She handed me a cream-colored stationery note with Margaret's elegant handwriting. The letter contained everything you'd expect from her. Fake concern for Elena's well-being, thinly veiled racial remarks about my family's influence, and a clear ultimatum. Leave me and get the money, or stay and Lily would suffer. What do you want to do? I asked gently. Elena looked up, her eyes red but determined. I already called Dad. He had no idea about these conditions on the trust. He's furious with Mom. That doesn't answer my question, I said. I'm not choosing money over our family, Adebayo. Not again. I made that mistake once, and I'm still trying to fix it. She took a deep breath. But I wanted to be honest with you about everything. No more secrets. I believed her. For the first time in weeks, I actually believed her. The following day, Robert called me directly. I'm sorting out this trust fund nonsense, he said, sounding angrier than I'd ever heard him. Margaret had no right to add those conditions without consulting me. I appreciate that, I said. But honestly, it's not about the money. I know that, he replied. But it's the principle. She's trying to buy our granddaughter's future. I won't stand for it. Robert offered to come over that weekend to talk with both of us. When he arrived on Saturday, he carried his own folder of documents. I've spoken with our family attorney, he stated as we sat in the living room. The trust, as Margaret presented it, isn't legally binding. I never signed off on those conditions. Elena appeared relieved. So the money is still there for Lily's education? Yes, regardless of your marital status or custody arrangement. Robert hesitated. But there's something else you should know. I've been investigating our finances since all this came to light. He opened the folder to show U.S. bank statements and transfer records. Margaret has been moving money for months, starting with small amounts and gradually increasing. Where was it going? I asked, though I had a sinking suspicion I already knew. To a separate account in her name only. Almost $120,000 so far. He looked at Elena. I think she was planning to fund your divorce and new life without telling me. Elena covered her face with her hands. Oh my God, I've frozen the accounts for now, Robert continued. But I wanted you both to know what's been happening. Elena remained silent for a long time after Robert left. Finally, she looked at me, tears in her eyes. I'm so ashamed. My own mother was stealing from my father to fund this insane plan. I sat beside her on the couch. It's not your fault. Part of it is. I let her convince me you were the villain when she was the one manipulating everyone. She wiped her eyes. I need to tell you something else. Something I haven't admitted yet. My heart raced. What is it? When Mom first started talking about divorce, I didn't take it seriously. But then she introduced me to this friend of hers, Jennifer. Jennifer told me this horrible story about her daughter, who married a man from Kenya. How he seemed perfect at first, but became controlling and eventually violent. And you thought that would happen with me? I asked, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. No, that's just it. I didn't believe it would happen with you, but Mom kept pushing. And then, she broke off. Then what? Then I found out Jennifer doesn't even have a daughter. David discovered it by accident when he was looking into Mom's friends. Jennifer was an actress Mom hired to tell this story. Elena's voice broke. My own mother paid someone to lie to me about an abusive foreign husband to convince me to leave you. I was speechless. Margaret had gone to extraordinary lengths. I wanted you to know everything, Elena explained quietly. Even the parts that make me look gullible and stupid. I took her hand. It wasn't quite forgiveness, but it was something. Thank you for telling me. The next several days were a strange combination of progress and tension. Elena and I were communicating more effectively than we had in months, but Margaret's continued schemes were taking their toll. We decided to dismiss the divorce petition, which felt like a significant step forward. Then, without warning, Margaret appeared at Lily's school. I received a call from the principal while I was at work. Mr. Okafor, we had an incident today. Your mother-in-law attempted to pick up Lily without authorization. My blood ran cold. Is Lily okay? She's fine. Our staff followed protocol and refused to release her. But Mrs. Campbell became quite agitated. We had to ask her to leave the premises. I immediately called Elena, and we both left work to go to the school. Lily was in the principal's office looking confused, but otherwise well. Grandma came to school, she told us. She said we were going on a special trip, but Mrs. Wilson wouldn't let me go. Elena knelt down to her level. Grandma didn't tell us about any trip, sweetie. You did the right thing by staying with your teacher. Elena was trembling with anger on the drive home. She tried to take our daughter without permission. I know, I replied, gripping the steering wheel tightly. This has gone too far, Adebayo. We need to do something. I agreed. That night, after Lily was asleep, we called Robert and David to update them. Robert was devastated. I don't recognize who Margaret has become, he told us. First the money, now this. David was more pragmatic. You need a restraining order. That feels extreme, Elena remarked, but I could tell she was considering it. She tried to take Lily from school without permission, David reminded her. What if she succeeds next time? The next morning, we consulted with Sarah again. She agreed that a restraining order was necessary, given Margaret's escalating behavior. We filed the paperwork that day, requesting that she stay away from our home, Lily's school, and our workplaces. The temporary order was granted quickly, but Margaret would have the opportunity to contest it at a hearing in 2 weeks. Sarah warned us it would be difficult. She'll likely bring up the abuse allegations again, she said. Even though we have evidence they were fabricated, be prepared for some ugly accusations. Those 2 weeks were tense. We informed Lily's school about the restraining order details and increased security measures at home. Elena was a nervous wreck, caught between protecting our family and facing the prospect of taking legal action against her own mother. Margaret, meanwhile, went on the offensive. She called every family member and told them I was manipulating Elena and turning her against her own mother. Most saw through it, particularly after David revealed what we knew. But a few distant relatives sided with Margaret. The day of the hearing arrived. Elena and I dropped Lily off with my brother Chijioke, who promised to keep her entertained with a visit to the science center. Elena squeezed my hand as we entered the courthouse. Whatever happens in there, we're in this together, she told me. Margaret was already inside with her attorney, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit. She glared at us from across the room. The hearing was exactly as Sarah had warned. Margaret's lawyer portrayed me as a controlling, potentially dangerous husband who had manipulated Elena into recanting her abuse allegations. They invoked every stereotype about African men they could think of, barely disguising their prejudice as concern. When it was our turn, Sarah methodically presented the evidence we had gathered. The video of Margaret coaching Elena to make false claims, the financial records showing Margaret's theft of funds, and the statement from Lily's school about the unauthorized pickup attempt. Judge Patel, a no-nonsense older woman, listened carefully to both sides' arguments. When all evidence had been presented, she addressed Margaret directly. Mrs. Campbell, the evidence suggests you have engaged in a pattern of deception and manipulation aimed at destroying your daughter's marriage for reasons that appear to be primarily rooted in prejudice, she said flatly. Furthermore, your attempt to remove your granddaughter from school without parental permission is extremely concerning. Margaret tried to interrupt, but Judge Patel silenced her with a look. The restraining order is granted for a period of 1 year. You are to remain at least 500 feet from your daughter, her husband, their child, their home, workplaces, and the child's school. Any violation will result in immediate consequences. She turned to face us. Mr. and Mrs. Okafor, I suggest you pursue family counseling to address the damage this situation has caused. As we left the courthouse, I felt an odd mixture of relief and sadness. The restraining order would keep us safe, but the fact that we needed it at all was devastating, especially for Elena. Are you okay? I asked her as we walked to the car. She nodded slowly. I think so. It feels like the end of something, but maybe also the beginning of something better. Over the next few months, our lives gradually became more stable. With Margaret legally required to stay away, we could focus on rebuilding our family without her influence. Elena continued her individual therapy, dealing with the complex emotions of essentially losing her mother while saving her marriage. Robert filed for divorce from Margaret, unwilling to forgive her financial dishonesty and her attempts to manipulate their daughter. He became a frequent visitor to our home, rekindling his relationship with Lily and, unexpectedly, forming a friendship with my father. When my parents visited from Nigeria 6 months after the hearing, Elena and I renewed our vows in a small ceremony in our backyard. Nothing fancy, just close friends and family celebrating the fact that we had weathered the storm. My brother Chijio provided his amazing jollof rice. David handled the music, and Grace made everything look beautiful. During the ceremony, Elena added her own surprise vow in halting but well-practiced Yoruba. Her effort to learn those few sentences in my native language moved me more than anything else. Later that night, after the guests had left and Lily had fallen asleep, Elena and I sat on our back porch, looking at the stars. Do you think we'll ever completely get past this? She asked softly. I thought about it for a moment.